had carried a gun, and that after a lifetime of enforced exile, he was trying to reclaim the Albanian throne. Today, he was going out of town to meet the people, and we wanted to go with him. Our driver, Christo, said he knew exactly what would happen next.
The police will come, and when the police will come here, we'll see that after 10 minutes or 15 minutes, he'll leave.
The king had caught us napping. The royal court was leaving without us.
No, we'll be back again on the village because I know the village where.
By the time we arrived at the village, the king was already leaving. Leka Zog had been allowed to return to Albania because the country was about to make a momentous decision. Should it keep the presidential system of government or restore the monarchy? With less than 2 weeks to go before the referendum, Zog was out on the stump.
Roger.
2 hours later, we found ourselves on an abandoned building site.
I know he is here.
Where are we going, Krista?
In Kashar. Mbredit ne kaloi?
Jo, kam mbret.
Tash, po do kalu në Kashar, mbreti më. Do të vazhdoj rrugën?
Ne duhet kesh. Po pse do ta bini mbreti no?
Kur do?
Po do ta vi mbreti këtej?
Po.
A, na vjen.
Se?
Na bot me mbret.
I do në më kinë se.
Po ta bini këtej të përret me njëre.
Në Albania më jo?
Atja e ki.
Se ka dhe këtu, atje ka shajë numër 2, këtu ishtë njëshi. Këtu s'kare se po të vine dhe shikoshin e.
Politika ka luta që mos keni qenë gjumë ju.
Jo, mërë vëlla, ka qenë të lama qinë të martu.
We love the king.
The hotel, favoured by foreign journalists, had been quiet for some time, but business was about to pick up. At the same time as the referendum on the monarchy, Albania was to hold a general election, and the world would be watching. Albania was the last communist regime in Europe to fall. Since 1991, it had lurched from one corrupt government to the next. In March this year, it had finally toppled into anarchy. The people vented their fury on a government which had supported fraudulent saving schemes. The prisons had burst open and the arsenals had been looted. Now a fearful lull had fallen on the country. Gangs of gunmen cruised the streets. We were warned not to travel unless we could afford to lose everything. Risto, our driver, was relieved it was an army roadblock. They were looking for weapons, but it was a half-hearted search. These soldiers hadn't been paid for 3 months, and all they really wanted to do was leave Albania. Just below the roadblock, a corpse had been found in the ditch. The air was thick with the stench of decaying flesh. 2 families had come to try and identify the body. Both families had missing sons.
Now they are waiting. Who is this body? My son or his son? Terrible.
Every night at curfew, the air rattled with the sounds of a country close to the brink. We wondered if a film about the King's campaign was such a good idea after all. Next day, we returned to the King's villa. This time, we were determined not to be left behind. We were told to speak to a man called Jaffa.
Very good, thank you.
We wondered whether we could spend a little time, perhaps today, perhaps we could go in the car with the party to the meeting.
Palle?
No.
Does your very good? Which car?
Well, we don't mind. It's just to be part of the entourage, because we're feeling a bit left out.
Left out from...
Well, because we come to make a film here about the King and about the... But Jaffa was distinctly unmoved by our request, and the royal bodyguard still didn't want us to film anything, especially the Kalashnikov on the front seat of the police car. No one seemed to know what to do with us. Then the owner of the Kalashnikov approached us.
Which car you are coming?
They must have decided that if we insisted on joining the royal party, someone should keep an eye on us.
We'd like to give you one of those guys to as a company.
Thank you.
You want one of those guys?
If that's...
Yeah,
that's great.
Okay.
But we're just a bit worried that he was...
This guy, yeah.
Okay.
This is our guy. He will stand by you.
Avion. Aeroplane. Yeah. That's your name. Aeroplane. Right. And you're going to come with us. You with Roger and me in the car. Good. That's going to be a good day. And then there he was, all 6'10" of him. Leka Zog emerged for an improbable photo call. Now, we really were part of the royal entourage. We were surprised that for such a small village, a large and enthusiastic crowd had turned out. The owner of the Kalashnikov wanted to introduce himself to us. He produced a police identity card and told us his name was Ali.
Great, Vice Provost.
Vice Provost.
Name Ali. Father Rustem, surname Usman. Before this, I worked in police, like an expert for traffic circulation, traffic, not traffic drugs and the guns and stuff like that, but traffic circulation.
The king repeatedly declared he had plans for restoring law and order. Only the monarchy, he promised, could bring salvation to his hard-pressed subjects. The Albanian royal family is a recent invention. Ahmed Zog, a tribal chieftain from the north, declared himself Zog I in 1928. It saved him the bother of having to take part in elections. The king had no patience with the limitations of a constitutional monarchy. Many political opponents were either exiled or assassinated. One of his more harmless innovations was the curious Zogist salute. For those in court circles, Zog's reign was a golden age.
We viennent Shonket. Tu shoh në këtë kondita. Nuk ishin të para pa. Në kohën e mbretërisë.
In 1939, the age of Zog came to an abrupt end. The Italian army invaded, and Zog fled with his queen, Prince Leka, and a considerable part of the Albanian treasury. The royal family, their courtiers and bodyguards, sat out the war years in the London Ritz. They paid the bill with gold bars. In 1944, communist partisans took over Albania, and it became one of the most isolated regimes in the world. It would be 58 years before Zog's son could return to Albania to try and reclaim the throne. As election day loomed, everyone expected the Socialist Party, led by reformed remnants of the old communist regime, to win power. The hunger for some kind of stability was palpable, even if it meant having the old guard back again. The colliery had been looted in the anarchy. Thieves had even stolen the electrical cable from the mine workers' apartments, leaving hundreds of families without electricity or water.
Kam burrin, kam djalin tjetër, jemi 6 veta në shtëpi, gjithë pa punë jemi. Kemi as tokat për kraj as një kemi. Unë për vetë s'kam asnjë lloj shpresë se çdo lloj qeverie që të vetë unë s'kam besim ke asnjë qeveri.
degree to which politics had failed these people was breathtaking. The man behind the king's campaign was Dr. Guri Durulari. He was leader of the monarchist party, a political party founded by Zog in exile and dedicated to the restoration of the Albanian throne. Dr. Guri told us he had spent his years of exile in America as a dentist in New Jersey. He had waited all his life to see the king return and defeat Republican socialism once and for all. He wanted us to meet his mother, a veteran of the Zog years.
You remember King
She told us how sad she was when King Zog died in exile in 1961. Her loyalty had gone straight to Prince Leka, who was crowned King of all Albanians at a private ceremony in a Paris hotel. The young prince was even more dedicated to the monarchy than his father. Albanians are a stubborn people, he said. I'll continue to fight until we are free, or I am dead. Dr. Guri had some news from one of the constituencies. One of his party workers had just been shot dead, and in other constituencies, Socialist Party supporters were starting to harass the monarchists.
They killed one in Lodge. They stopped a couple of people from our members of the commission in the field, Zone 82. They started trouble. And the sons, they start trouble, problems.
For Dr. Guri's mother, news of the shooting confirmed her worst suspicions.
Kommunister no good. No är no good. Att oss namn no good kommunister. Det är no kommunister. Die people, die. Finito Albania. People be finito. Communist.
We had been following the campaign trail for several days now, but we were no clearer about what the king's plans were for the country if he won the referendum. Everywhere he went, he studiously ignored us. We decided it was time to try a direct approach.
Is that useful, Your Majesty? Is that useful? Is that discussion useful? Very.
Ali, the policeman, was less reserved.
You take your chance. Please, forget about it.
He was pleased we'd come to make a film about the king. Albania should have a royal family, he said, just like the British one.
We got to probably listen to yourself.
Another stop on the campaign trail, Bar Brew, we had been warned, was an interesting place. It had a history of lawlessness and rebellion. It was the kind of town, someone said, where no one wants to be sheriff. Ali was looking nervous. He said if anything was going to happen to the king, it would probably happen here. It was only a few rounds fired into the air, but it gave the royal bodyguards a nasty turn. The visitor was Nihat Kula, known locally as the commander. Christo said he was a very well-known figure in the neighborhood.
Sen both sides, slipper sitta hon är gott att jag går nog på sin prova.
Är det ut jo? Det är så ska ni bara dela på. Så ju då. Nu kan ni ha det då.
We discovered that murder was just one of the many crimes which the commander was alleged to have committed. We wondered why he was free to sit and drink coffee with the king.
Look, this is the place. When we enter on this region that belongs to him. Always under his control.
When we asked Christo to take us to look for the commander, he said he would rather take the day off.
Can we ask first? Çuna puna mar. Sieni mira? Verin de shama. Como da ge? Passash me jos. Stop it.
We found his brother, Enver Kula, but the commander was in bed and wouldn't be getting up for some time.
He don't know. He haven't met him. So he went to sleep. They have remained here all the night.
Instead, Enver offered to show us around the neighborhood. Unlike virtually everywhere else in Albania, this area was untouched by the recent lawlessness. Enver took us to the outskirts of the village, to a military camp hastily abandoned by the army several months before.
37 millimeters.
For aircraft?
Anti-air.
Yeah, aircraft.
11 heavy guns, all in perfect working order, and all now under the control of Enver's brother.
Here are 10 people that will protect 24 hours.
This was just one of several arms depots in the Kula brothers' territory. By early evening, a collection of youths had gathered at the roadblock on the edge of the village. It was a unit of the commander's paramilitary protection force. Enver was in charge.
They are all boys from this village.
What ages? How old?
You can see 20, 21, 18, 15, 12, 12 years.
Kalashnikov, the best gun in the world. Better of the world.
But maybe you can find room in Mitsubishi.
Men Mitsubishi. Do të jetë na gjëri ismi.
Po, shumë
Se
mirë.
ai na bën ai karambol.
Po, shumë mirë, po kush do hipin këto?
Mitsubishi.
Ja. Ha, po kush do hipin këto? Po hapin rrugën ai të kombëlvizën e.
Po sa bën ismi. Po I marrim
Po futim Mitsubishi. Mam rrugë. Do të bin Mitsubishi, more comfortable.
Gjafe le të hypin.
Gjafe shkoj me gurin, gjafe.
Shkoj. Okej, do hypin Mitsubishi. Hirman.
In 1975, thousands of Albanian royalists attended a wedding in Spain. The king was marrying the daughter of an Australian sheep farmer. It was one of Zog's rare public events. Rhodesia, with Zog's military advisor Prince Wong of Burma in tow. They had just been expelled from Spain because of the king's illegal cache of machine guns, grenades and rocket launchers.
What you're saying is the word boxes about.
Good Lord, no, I wish I had them. We do have arms in depots in different parts of the world, but not sitting on top of the way Madrid, no. At the moment we've been concentrating more on propaganda than military, but we have had and we do continue military operations.
So is it safe to say that you're masterminding a guerrilla war in Albania?
It's a question of whether I'm a mastermind or not.
And you think I'm learning about you day by day.
The referendum was only 4 days away, and the king was due to leave for the last rally of his campaign. The royal court was in a buoyant mood.
Is it possible to take a few pictures of the king before he goes?
I don't know. We don't want to be disturbed. And so even us, he's telling us we hear a lot of things to relax.
He's thinking. Is he going to make a speech?
Maybe a short speech. You don't like to make a long speech. Short speech. Like I think it's the best short speech.
Sure. You talk, you make a mistake. Right?
But before we go, is it possible just to see him in there, just getting ready, or... I mean, we don't want to disturb him, but just before he goes, just for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Then, without any warning, the gates opened, and we were ushered inside. At last, we thought, we might find out what the king was really planning for his subjects. From the outside, people might wonder why you would want to come to try and do something for a country that you've never really lived in.
Well, if they wonder, then they don't understand the word duty. Duty is a very important part of my makeup. And I consider it my duty as an Albanian to do the best I can. I'm going to, if the monarchy wins this referendum, I'm going to bring justice, peace, and law and order first into the country.
How do you plan to retrieve law and order?
That is for me to know. I don't give out the plans ahead of time.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the monarchy?
I'm afraid I'm running out of time now.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have to leave. We'll have to do it another time because I've got this meeting which I can't put off.
Ali had arrived for the final rally ahead of the royal party. He changed into his police uniform. It was obviously going to be a big do. In the Palace of Congress, built by the communists to celebrate the wonders of their glorious state, Leka's loyalists were warming up. Ali once told us that his family had been sent to a state farm under the communists. He himself had been put to work in the fields at the age of 10. So much suffering, he'd said, so much to forget.
Since 1990 until now, we have changed 7 governments. We have done nearly nothing. I can explain it very, very easy to you. I came in power and I like to build the house this model. You came after me, you destroy this and try to rebuild another one. And the next order who will come after us will destroy both of them, so they'll build a new one, which is the result. It would be better to have 3 buildings or no buildings. Very simple.
We're very lucky in Britain.
Yes, you are. Because you haven't changed the system of governing for so many times.
And why you didn't? I can ask, for example. Why you didn't change? The answer must be, you are pleased with it. Somehow.
Shtator, herzlich willkommen. Wir kommen ganz. Wir gehen hier hoch.
Čakaj se, piše da će me blokувати ti. Ajme blokувати.
Hadi yapalım.
Ne bu borca? Osi problem. Osi problem. Aj.
Gdzie twoja figura? Gdzie troje? Yeah, was it fantastic, huh? I told you, right? Don't forget that. Huh? We're gonna win. Gdzie tam
It was election day, and Enver Kula had invited us to film the voting in his village. We found him in his local polling station. He was one of the official returning officers. At the King's Villa, we were informed that His Majesty would not be voting. Mr. Guri had invited us to his headquarters, along with some of his favourite party workers, for an informal press conference. His years of devotion had all been leading to this day, and before the polling stations had even closed, he was quietly confident.
Right now we're standing. We're standing to 60%. We're winning at 60%. But we don't get it.
Are these official results?
I are not official, but they are from these police stations.
The polling stations, right.
Everything is going well.
But Dr. Guri wasn't really in the mood for questions. He was already preparing for power.
They are saying that 100 was for the monarchy and 142 was for Republic.
The commander turned up to speak to his brother. He told Enver to stop wasting time with the election. He wanted him to get out and organize the roadblocks. Enver told us to wait for him at the edge of the village. He promised that this time we could meet his brother. In honor of the occasion, he was wearing his favorite football shirt.
Arsenal, ekibi Juve, England.
England. The Gunners. We had discovered that the commander was one of Albania's most wanted men. It was alleged that he had shot his wife's lover, who happened to be the detective hunting him. We weren't quite sure how to broach the subject.
Can the commander tell us briefly about his life before now?
Dëshira më e madhe imja ishte që më gjykate këto që gjoja më kanë akuzuar për krimet, më gjykate drejt, vetëm kaq është, as gjë tjetër.
And what does he believe the verdict will be?
Ata nuk e diun, do ta shohim kur gjykohen. Patjetër që ni diçka.
He had spent his life on the run, he told us, first from political ideologues and then from the police. Now, he claimed, he'd managed to bring stability to his local community.
How important are politicians to men like Mr. Kula?
S'ka respekt se punojnë për karrikën e vet. Don të vjedhin. Nuk punojnë për popullin. Është politik do me hikë të rapon.
He must go.
Skaja. Krypin makinna, këto do mua në qo. Ujnë atë në këtë jërë. Krypin në skaja. Pote i gjë. Ajde në vëtë. Pote i tjere. Dole atë këtë qone, s'pise ka në.
Mund largohi, se nuk bon, nuk ka... Ska veja për këndushin. Merri, nëse makina.
2 days later, the referendum results were still being counted, but rumours that the monarchy might not have won the vote were gaining ground. Overnight, the mood at the villa had changed.
Sorry, we just wanted to say, what should we do tomorrow?
We have no idea for tomorrow. We have nothing, we know, no plans for tomorrow.
The next day, it was announced that the monarchy had lost the referendum, with 33% of the vote. In the general election, the socialists had won a landslide victory. Royalists were convinced that the referendum results had been rigged by enemies of the crown. Dr. Guri was helpless to stem the tide of their anger.
Before we go any further, please, is this the press conference or whatever? We can't work this way. Okay. You get these people out of here. There are many pressures can't get in. Could these people leave?
This is for the press.
Okay, but please ask them to leave. Get them all out. Let them get them out.
We find that the manipulation of both the referendum and the vote, the electoral vote, has been beyond our conception.
Who do you think is behind this alleged massive manipulation?
The people who are responsible are the present leadership of the Socialist Party.
Next day, outside the villa, the king's arsenal was ominously conspicuous. The atmosphere was seething. The king emerged wearing battle dress. Ali handed him a Kalashnikov. The time for talking was obviously over.
Sir, can I ask you...
No, repeat it, please.
Well, I just want to ask him a question.